What's up everyone, it's HK Gaming. Today I have for you a special build for the overheat. You can use this build to farm for the weapons and other gears for your other classes, except for those set gears for a specific class. This can go super quick if you're farming expedition like Boomtown or Frontline where they have a lot of human type of enemy in a small area. Let's go over the skill that we'll be using. The first one is Heatwave. It will apply a burn effects for us to consume the overheat, extra damage. It will also apply a damage bonus effects. It will help us to deal with the elites. It is also the only problem that we'll be facing, not taking down the elites quick enough. The last skill that we'll be using is Ash Blast. It will also help us to consume the overheat, extra damage. The overheat has a 5 seconds of cooldown and Ash Blast has a 10 seconds cooldown, so it can perfectly line up 2 skill for your combo. If you're playing with a Pyromancer which uses my previous build that I made yesterday, you guys can run some world record timing with the expedition. Now let's look at the class point. We'll be going for nothing. Alright, hold right there. I know what you're thinking. Hear me out, okay? This is not some stupid shit. We will be going for the Ash Breaker for the cooldown of the Ash Blast. We have only a 10 seconds cooldown. And with the hot situation, we are able to get the 45% of Anomaly power. Almost like a passive for us. This is the reason why we are not going for the Tempest Anomaly power, which is only 6% per each, and it got like what, 3. That 45% of Anomaly power is much better, especially when the Tempest only increased 30% of the skill base damage. So this is really not something that we are looking for. A passive 45% of extra Anomaly power will do much better than that 30% skill base damage. This is also the core idea of this build. We do waste our class point on those weapon damage, but we will still get cooldowns and extra damage against enemy with Ash and stuff like this. We got 15% here, and then we have 10% extra damage with the Ash effects. When we use Ash Blast, that's the time that we really do like serious damage. We also get this kind of things like 15% longer with Ash effects, and this 10% extra damage with Elite. This is something that we really need for this build. So I would say spending class point on here is really worth it. Tempest is not as strong as you think, and this game has really a lot of different options. You can easily create a unique and strong build out of these kind of things. Like this one here, Ashes to Ashes. Every time Ash effects is applied to the enemies, vulnerable status effects will apply as well. And the enemies with Ash takes 15% more damage, and then we got the 15% cooldown here. And we can still spend the rest of the class point on the Tempest, where we get a little bit more Anomaly power and the cooldown as well. Now let's look at the weapon choice. We'll be using the Anomaly with the Morning Winds and Fortress. This is also the same weapon that I used for my last video. 400,000 damage for the Morning Winds is the best damage type of weapon mods in my opinion. And for the Fortress, we will receive up to 43% damage bonus, and it applies to everything. So Morning Winds and the skill that we'll be using. The second weapon that I'm using is the Death Shield. Same reason, I'm using this because of the Fortress and Morning Winds combo. Since you can't get the Fortress and Morning Winds together in the pistol, I'm using the Clip Combustion to do a little bit more damage when reloading. And for the headgear, you want something like Anomaly power and cooldown reduction together. You can only achieve the 10 seconds cooldown with all 5 gear having the cooldown reduction. And we will have the emergency stand and burnout as our mod. Since we are mainly going for the Ash Breaker, so you will rely on the 45% extra Anomaly power, so make sure you have cooldown reduction on it. And that 25% extra damage with Heatwave will help us to deal with the elite enemies. Ash Blast and the Overhit will handle the rest, and the emergency stance is very well needed. We will not be as tanky as my last build where I go for the Firestorm, so this time you'll have to play a little bit more careful, but as long as you apply that Ash Blast on the enemy and the Overhit, the whole area will be wiped out. So you don't have to worry about too much, unless it is a elite, because you can't take them in one full combo. And next let's look at the upper armor piece. I'm using the Anomaly set. It has Anomaly power and cooldown reduction, so it's perfect for us. And the detonator will decrease the overheat cooldown by 50%. Plus it has the tidal wave as the second mod, so it would be perfect for us. We don't have to modify anything. The best thing about this Anomaly set is that every enemy damaged by the heat wave will give you 50% Anomaly power bonus. So I would say this will be the best choice as long as you have a heat wave in your build. And for the lower armor piece, I'm using Anomaly as well. The Anomaly Echo will give you extra Anomaly power and firepower for 15 seconds. And all of our skill cooldown is below 10 seconds, so it is a passive for us. And the second mod, I'm using the Death Sentence. This is also the same one that I used in my previous video which I posted yesterday. Your weapon damage and Anomaly damage against enemies affected by the Ash Blast are increased respectively by 40% and 30%. This is a lot of damage bonus and it is very well needed. Otherwise we won't do enough damage against the elite enemies. Especially our skill cooldown is only at 10 seconds. This will also help us to apply that bonus damage when we are doing AOE with that Ash Blast and Overheat combo. That way we don't have to rely on that Overheat that much to trigger that Overheat bonus damage effects. And for the gloves, of course, we will need the Anomaly power and cooldown reduction. And then I'm using the Pants on Fire, increased 48,000 damage to the enemies who are damaged by the skill. This will help us to do a little bit more damage when we are out of Heat Wave and the Ash Blast. We can use this before we actually enter the battlefield, and it will also help us to do a little bit more damage and quickly locate the enemies. When you're playing Expedition that has a large area, sometimes Overheat and Ash Blast can't reach to the enemies, and you can still use Overheat during that time so you don't waste up those cooldown. And the second mod, Ash Increased Range, is a must. You have to have this. It will increase the Ash Blast skill range by 66%. Otherwise it will not be enough to cover the whole area of the expedition. This is also the reason why we are finishing the expedition that quickly. Right after we use the Ash Blast, we can use the Overheat. And for the foot gear, I'm using the Anomaly set as well. I only use this because I do not have a better option. It doesn't have a Anomaly power, but it does have a cooldown reduction which is very well needed for our build. And the Master Consumer on the gear is also a perfect choice for us. The Overheat consume either burn or ash status to do damage. Consuming both at once will increase the damage by 150%. And the second mod that I'm using is Rider Wave, so we have one more heat wave to use before triggering the cooldown. And the skill that we are using, Ash Blast, is only 10 seconds, Overheat is 5 seconds. So after every single Overheat that you use, you can make sure your next Overheat will trigger the Master Consumer effects. And then for the elite enemy that you're facing, you can just throw Heat Wave at them. It will do 25% more damage and we have 3 of them, so 75% more, and then Ash Blast will give you 35% and the overall is 150% more. The damage bonus is really a lot to count, not to mention that we have the 45% Anomaly power as a passive, and then we have the Ash effects receive 10% more, 15% more, that's 25% in total, and then we will apply the vulnerable effects as well, and then we have this 10% extra damage against elite. The whole build does a lot of extra damage. You might not be able to finish those big bosses elite at one combo, but surely you will have enough damage. So every time you see a list, just throw all 3 heat wave and an as well as an overheat. And that's it for the build. I'm not very familiar with the build when I was recording the gameplay, so it is not the perfect timing. It's not the best time that it can get, but it will show you what this build can do and the basic idea and the concept of this build. I made a few mistakes in that run too, but you get the idea. Okay, now I'll leave the gameplay footage for you guys. Let me know what you think about this build in the comment section below. And that will be it for today's video. Leave a like if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe. I'll be making more gaming videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
What the hell is that noise?